Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Odoo Insider. My name is Richard, and I'll be hosting today's episode. And for those of you who are not familiar with this, it's essentially just an open Q&A where you can ask any and all questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as fully as I can. Just some information for you for the next couple of weeks. We have, of course, today's session with me. Afterwards, we have 2 pre-recorded sessions, but then the 8th of January, we have a focus on Swiss payroll for 2026. So, with that out of the way, the administration done, let's begin. Please feel free to send any and all questions that you have, if you have any. If not, I will just ramble nonstop until you find something to talk about. Or I actually have some questions we can discuss. So, any questions? I think I see none yet. All right. Whoops, wrong button.
They will come. We have 30 viewers now.
Where'd it go? Where did I lose myself? I lost where I was. My bad. Odoo Insider. All right. I'll just begin with my first rambling question of the day, which is, my client always receives slightly more or slightly less than what is invoiced, resulting in a purchase order that always shows something to invoice. Is there a way around it so that we can change this behavior? So what we're talking about here specifically is in the, where'd it go? I lost it again. Not bad. I think it's because I lost this screen somehow. All right, let's zoom in. What we're talking about is in the purchase application. Let me actually download some demo data for us all so we're not using something blank. You can download demo data very easily in the configuration settings. You need to turn on developer mode, and then of course you have load demo data. This button will not appear after 4 hours, so be aware of that. Now please also be aware that you need to read these warning pop-up messages because they tell you what's going on. I have seen clients literally ignore pop-up messages even though reading it would have helped them explain what was going on next. So I understand the risk and move forward. We did get a question, so I'm going to deviate from that original question I asked myself, and we'll answer this one and come back to it later if nothing else comes up. Where can I find materials to study Odoo 19? So Odoo has a full marketing team, and what they're doing is constantly putting up video content all the time. So in fact, I can show you right now. I'll just hide my bookmarks, don't need to see that. So odoo.com/slides. If you go to our slides, this is converted in French. If you happen to stumble on Odoo in a different languages, just go to the very bottom of the screen and change it to English or whatever language you prefer. And so here you're going to find a lot of different study material. We have our certifications and our courses, and you can just search for it as well. But we have a lot of basic ones. So if you look at all of our courses, it's split into application set or departments really. And you can see how much content is in there, how long it would take you to watch, etc. It's a good source to go. Now we also have Odoo documentation in different versions and several different languages. Now the languages might not always be up to date. All of it is here. You can type what are you looking for. Bank, let's not do bank, we already talked about that. Let's do asset management. And Odoo will find, using some magic formulas in the back end, all the relevant files that might be relevant to you or interesting for you. Last but not least, not last but not least, if you go to odoo.com/help, you can actually get to Ask Odoo AI, ask your questions. How do I set up advanced routes? And Odoo AI will give you content for you in order to put you in the right direction. Now, it's also really important for you to not to not undervalue Google. Just literally Google what you want. Odoo is an open core, open source community. So essentially, someone might have already answered the question. Just literally Google, how do I manage my assets in Odoo? And you'll get a bunch of videos, you'll get some content created, you'll get AI, ChatGPT or Gemini, you'll get a bunch of documentation, forum posts, etc. So don't hesitate to use that. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You can go to ChatGPT or Gemini, etc., and ask these kind of questions as well. However, usually that information will be a bit out of date because they might have a cutoff in terms of the information. Also, Odoo makes it more challenging because we have new versions every single year. So what that means is ChatGPT might be out of date. So use some critical thinking to maybe read what you're doing, explore, and see if it makes sense or not, but don't take it at face value. Last but not least, you of course can, I'm sure there's many last but not leasts, you can of course reach out to us directly. Our help desk team is always ready to help. Whenever you want, you just go to odoo.com/help and chat, ask a question. They will give you free support. So there's all sorts of resources for you. You ideally would never have a situation where you can't get assistance, most of it free, but there is, of course, paid help. And the last thing, again, another last thing, just explore. Break Odoo. That's the best way to learn it. Hopefully that helps. All right. Let's see. Red Juan. If I mispronounced whatever your name, I apologize. Please forgive me. If a company has 3 owners and each owner holds a certain percentage of the capital, how can I record and allocate each owner's entitlements, whether from revenue or expenses in Odoo? Okay, so this is an accounting question, the best kind of question. Now, This isn't unique to Odoo. Essentially, you're talking about just maybe distributing the equity of your business to your relevant equity owners. If we go to accounting and we go take a look at our balance sheet reporting, what happens is you're going to actually have current year unallocated earnings. That's just going to be essentially your profit or loss for the year. And you need to book an entry to move this value into whatever account you want. Let's see what that would look like, because we're almost at the end of the year anyway. If I go to my chart of accounts, in fact, if we go to the very end, you're going to see undistributed profit and loss. This is a current year earnings type. This actually does not appear in your profit and loss at all, or even in your balance sheet for that matter. It's just there, it exists, and you're going to book an entry into this account to remove the value from whatever you saw there previously. Now, what do you do next? Well, let's take a look at our other equity type accounts. Let's just group account type. Let's look at all. And we have equity here. So capital, great. So let's copy this. Let's go look at our report balance sheet. What I'm going to do to make this a bit easier, hopefully it doesn't make you dizzy, I'm actually going to have two tabs open in Odoo at the same time just to navigate back and forth for this exercise. So what I'll do is I'll go to the journal entry. I will create new, and this is where you begin. First off, I think a miscellaneous operations journal is really a mess. I don't like it. Would never recommend it personally. Unless you want to keep it for small things here and there, okay, great. Personally, what I recommend to all my clients is to create a new journal, just called like adjusting journal entries. And it will be a miscellaneous type, and I'm just going to call it ADJ. Business is messy, mistakes happen. You might need to perform a manual journal entry every now and again, so it is always great to have an adjusting journal entries journal just for you to keep track of all the manual adjustments that you do that's outside of what Odoo normally generates on its own. You can have as many as you want. You can have adjusting journal entries inventory, you can have adjusting journal entries whatever, just so it's a bit more clear, and the sequence prefix gives you the ability to easily see and determine, okay, is this a standard Odoo automated journal entry, or is this one that I created myself? So now that we're done with that journal entry, I'm going to come here and select it. It's not here. Sometimes you need to do a quick refresh or quick new. Will it show up? There it is. Beautiful. As you can see the sequence that's going to be generated. End of year allocations. And you're going to hit the account I specified previously, capital. And here's we do the 9999. So what I'm doing in this case is, let's paint the scenario where I know I need to close my end of the year, and I'm just going to remove it from the unallocated earnings right here, this 49,000. Now, what I'm doing is you can actually do it in one step if you don't want to do it in two. So in this case, for example, this is a profit. As you can see, we're increasing our equity. So what we need to do is remove it. So profit is a credit type account. So to remove it, it's a debit. So we're going to debit the undistributed loss by that amount, and we're going to credit our capital because our equity went up. Now, in this case, if you really wanted to, and you already knew the distribution that you wanted to allocate to each of the owners and shareholders, then you can just, instead of hitting capital, you can just hit shareholder 1 equity, shareholder 2 equity, shareholder 3 equity. But maybe you don't know that quite yet, so what you're going to do is just going to move it into capital and then later redistribute it to whatever equity counts you want. Post, and voila. So if I were to go back to my balance sheet, refresh, if I did it correctly, which I did, current year allocated earnings is gone, net zero, and your current year earnings is correctly allocated. And actually what I just did is also considered the closing entry. There is no closing entry you need to perform in Odoo. That's more complicated. Other software, you need to debit all your revenue, you need to credit all your expenses, set them to zero, move them into equity. You don't need to do that in Odoo. Odoo automatically knows that, okay, a balance sheet, it's a rolling asset. It rolls forward. So it's going to always continue every year. If I have €1 million in my bank account on December 31st, if I stay and do nothing, I reasonably expect the same amount of money in my bank account at January 1st. However, revenue and income, revenue expenses, they go away at the end of the year, so Odoo knows that automatically, which is why we did what we just did. So hopefully that helps clarify your question. All right, Imran, when will Odoo 19 certification be available for partners? I think it's already available. In fact, we might already have some Odoo employees who are certified. So good luck, have fun, make friends. All right, Hans, I think I recognize you. We have freelancers we hire to do some maintenance. Not full year, but on a busy times. 1 month, maybe 2. What is the best solution to make sure they work on our work orders to field service orders? They need to fill in hours and make photos of the site. Do they need a license, or is there another way to do this? All right. That's a fun question. Well, all questions are fun, don't get me wrong. So if you have freelancers that have to do some work, so what kind of maintenance are they doing? Are they going on site? What kind of work do they need to do? But maybe not super relevant. But what's going on in the project application, we have the ability to share. So for example, renovations. Let's say you hire freelancers to go on site to perform renovations. Now, do you want them to take advantage of the full suite of Odoo applications, or do you have bare minimum tasks that you want them to perform? So for example, what I would do is weigh the pros and cons of giving them a full user access, paying for their license, and of course modify their access rights to limit what they can see. Is the work they're performing worth the cost of that? So you take the revenue generated from them divided by the cost. How does that look? Is it worth the headache to do a lot of the management on your own? But I digress. What I'm going to go to is actually the project itself, the configuration and renovations. Here we can actually make sure that this one in case is only internal users, but what we can do is invited internal and portal users, or all internal and invited portal users. What this allows us to do in the visibility of the project settings is you can share the project. In fact, I'm going to see if I can do it now. Yes, so I'm going to create a new contact real quickly. So let's go to contacts. We're going to create a new one called, what is it? Independent contractor. You're going to do John. So, and he has a email at fake@mail.com. Great. So, just so I don't lose John, because he gets lost very easily, I'll go back to my project application. I'm going to go to my renovations project. Actually, you need to go to the settings of it. Share project here in the top left. Again, this is only going to show up if you allow for it with the visibility here. Share and add John Independent Contractor. And here you can modify what kind of access rights they get. So you have read, you have edit with limited access, or edit. So read, let's just see what that looks like. So copy that. I'm going to go into incognito mode, paste that. And this is what they're going to see. This is just read. They're going to see the lists of tasks in the renovations project. They can open it up, and that's it. Nothing more. These are all in different stages, I believe. Let's group by stage. They're all undone, so that's why. If I were to, go back. Here, we can maybe just add some tasks that are not in the done stage. Let's move it back over. And we can see what it would look like from John's perspective. See? But again, nothing more than read. So if I go back here and change his access rights, John, to read with limited access, copy that same link. Now we can come in here. Maybe I need to do a close and a refresh. Let me just copy the link again and share. Incognito mode again. If I'm not messing up, it's supposed to give them the ability to make changes here. Maybe I need to jump back in. fake@mail.com. Don't have an account, so let's create one. John Contractor. fake@mail.com. Odoo 123. Doesn't really matter. That's my password for everything. That's also a lie. So let's go back. There are no tasks. So what did we do wrong here? I know why. So we want John to see specific tasks. Not all tasks, but specific ones. So what we'll do here, we'll go to the bathroom. He needs to perform a renovation or repair. We're going to add John as a follower. And done. So now that John is a follower, he can see this task, assuming I did everything correctly, but I never assume. Let's try that again. We can see it there. Something is, Odoo's embarrassing me in front of all of you cool people. Let me try again. Whoopsies. You don't even see that. What happened there? I know what happened there. I think I do. Because John created an account, and my problem was I didn't actually grant him access to the portal. So in fact, I just gave him access to it, but without an Odoo account. And so what likely happened, if I am correct about my mistake, that's what happened. When you create a user, portal or not, Odoo creates a contact. So I need to merge them. And so I created contact, granted contact, that old contact access, but then John signed in and created a new one. So mistakes were made. We'll merge. Done. So now it should be the same. Hit refresh. There we go. Now John can go look at the projects and tasks and see the ones that John are assigned to. And he can come in here and write whatever he wants. Which house again? You forgot an address. And I'm now going to see that in the back end as John's internal contact at my business. Projects, renovations, the bathroom, there it is. Easy. So very limited access in this instance. And in fact, you can see that he can't really do anything. Now, so let's go back to the project. And let's change. Well, obviously you can see, actually there's a share project button here, so you don't need to go through the extra clicks, but old habits. So now we're going to change it to edit access. So share project, go back to John, refresh. Let's maybe refresh here. Sometimes you need to do a hard refresh. There we go. So now John sees everything in a Kanban-like status. In fact, as John, I can easily drag and drop and move these tasks into whatever stage I want. I can come in here, modify descriptions. This looks great. And apply subtasks if I need to, or look at the subtasks. Now, I think you're also asking about if he can log time as well. I'm not convinced. I mean, maybe it makes sense for him to log time here. I would need to think about it further. Well, first off, Johnny's being an employee in Odoo at least. Now, just because he's an external contractor doesn't mean you can't create an employee contractor, because you can choose the different types of employees, or at least previously you could. Where is it? Job position. There's a different job title. I think there's an employee type somewhere. Probably missed it. Yeah. It's hiding somewhere here, or they removed it, one of the two. Or I'm just missing it. Either way, I'm not sure that this will. Let's try. This is not going to show. This is only for internal users. That's why. So you're not seeing portal users as well. So this is not really going to work. I don't think that he can log time from what I'm looking at it. That said, again, I'm not convinced it's necessary for him log time because, for example, he's an independent contractor. He's going to log time and bill you for it. And then you're going to use accounting to use analytic accounts to assign that bill that John sends you into this project specifically. And that's how you're going to do it. If you really need to have him log time and you disagree with my assessments, it's probably a customization of the portal view, unless I'm gravely mistaken and missing something. But I don't think it makes sense that an external contact can log time here. Because again, you need an employee record. And if I go back to projects, sorry, going in circles, but I'll finish up right here. Oh, there's no time required on this project. That's probably why. Let's change that up. Let's add billable. It's okay to be wrong. There is no timesheet. Do I have even timesheets installed? I do not. Let's try that real quickly. Timesheets. Give it a second to load. So what I've done so far is does not require a license. It's just a portal user. So easy stuff. So now if I go back to projects and look at renovations. So there is timesheets now. So let's switch to John. Refresh. Project. There we go. Okay. No, he can't. Again, I think it makes sense. I'm going to maybe make sure I'm absolutely correct about my wrongness, because you still can't invite him here because it's only showing internal users, not portal users. And as I mentioned before, you need them to be an employee, and I'll prove that by going to developer mode. I'm going very quickly. I'm going back to the project one more time. Timesheets. This is using the employee model. So it's not that straightforward because you can't link a employee to a portal non-internal user. Great. I hope that helps, Hans. All right. Could you show the full workflow to make a prepayment to a vendor for inventory? How it hits the different accounts, stock movements, create a purchase order, pay it in advance, receive it, and post the bill. Yes, I can happily show you that. Now, I've previously sent feedback to replicate the same functionality that we have in the sales side with the purchase side. And unfortunately, it's not available yet. Sorry. But it's a bit manual, unfortunately, at least the standard approach. So the thing is, I would argue that you need to create the PO first for this whole flow. Make a prepayment to a vendor for inventory. So let's go to purchase. Let's create a new purchase order. We'll do it from Gemini Furniture. And I think it was, I don't like that one. Where is it? It's 555. There we go, cable management box. I'm going to turn off developer mode to declutter the screen. So cable management box, it's obviously we want to do down payment in advance because we can't afford at the moment to pay all of it, or they want to pay it in advance. There we go, 100 units for 7,000. So what we'll need to do here is confirm, like normal. Now, very quickly, let's look at the product. The reason why is because the vendor policy is based off of received quantity, so we have to have received it before we can create the regular bill. What I would do here is now confirm. We haven't received anything yet. We confirm that we want to buy this item. So let's say we're going to do a 50% down payment on this, or prepayment rather. Again, there is no direct standard functionality for this. Again, it's on the sales side, not on the purchase side. So what we would do, that I would do, is let's just go here. We'll go to accounting. We're going to, do you want a bill in the system representing this prepayment, or do you just want to have a payment? There's nothing wrong with either. One just has a bit more traceability than the other. What I'll do is I'll just do it the way that Odoo does it on the sales side. Well, we'll create a bill. It'll be the same one, Gemini Furniture. Bill reference, what we can do is it's PO014 prepayment. Now you don't need a product necessarily, but what I can do is I can just do prepayment. Now the thing is, this wouldn't be an expense. I would call this a profit, not a profit, sorry, a asset of some sort, like a prepayment. So of course the account you use will be dependent on your localization, your local accounting rules. So I'm going to go back to accounting, configuration, chart of accounts. Let's group by assets or type. Do we have any prepayment? We do have prepaid expenses now. I mean, we could consider that, but that would be more for deferred. It doesn't really matter. Prepayments. I'm going to call it an asset of, great, and it's a current asset. Done. So now, going back to my original tab, I know I'm going very quickly, so if you need to yell about me to slow down, you can, feel free. In fact, actually, is this going to let me pick that asset? Yeah, should. There we go. Prepayments. And that's not what I wanted. That's what, 3,500. Boom, there we go. So if I confirm this, I have a prepayment bill. Confirm. And you have a journal items. Prepayment, that's my asset, and my account payable liability. I pay it, and done. So now what's going to happen, we have to keep track of this. I will now receive my inventory, so I'll go to the purchase order, receive, validate that I'm receiving all 100 units. Okay, this one requires a lot. We will generate slot serial numbers. Cable management box 1. Actually, do we have a sequence? We do not. That's fine. That's okay. And done. We've received it into stock. Now we can bill. Odoo 19 removed the create bill from here. So we'd actually have to go back to the purchase or the accounting application. So let's do that. We'll go to purchases. We can upload or create new. And this is where we do Gemini. And we relate to the corresponding PO. There it is. Now, because it's not a similar functionality to that of the sales, we need to remember that we did this prepayment. So in this case, we can hit the prepayment. This is the benefit of having actually a product. If we had the product, we could just select the product and it would automatically set the prepayment. So in this case, what we'll do is we'll just make sure we add the product. Well, we actually don't need it, sorry. And we know that it is a 3,000, well, negative 3,500 for the prepayment. And confirm. Oops, again, as always, bill date. So then we hit the expense, we hit the prepayment, it is now removed, and accounts payable is correctly set. So you don't actually have to pay the full amount. And then we just pay the 3,500, and voila. So this approach mimics the sales order as a manual approach without some of the automations that the sales order has with down payments. If you didn't like that approach and you wanted Odoo to actually prompt you to let you know in advance, hey, you actually paid something in advance, another way to do it is, if I go to purchase, I will duplicate this order, confirm it, again, 7,000. Let's say they issue a pro forma or what have you. Going back to this other tab I have open here, vendors and payments. I'll create a new payment for Gemini for 3,500. You can log whatever memo you want. Prepayment for PO 15 and confirm. So now that's validated, Odoo books a journal entry. Actually, did I set that up correctly? I don't know if I did. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I validate, I'm receiving this. Let's create the serial numbers. Validate that I've received it. I'm going to go to the bill. New. Yes. Gemini again. Add the purchase order. And confirm. Again, I always make the same mistake. Okay. In this case, this test database is configured correctly. Because I've made that prepayment through the payment, and there's an accounts receivable generated, which I guess maybe there isn't accounts receivable here at the moment. You can see at the bottom. Okay, so it's Odoo 19 has changed its functionality, which is great. It's easier. So now you can see this blue banner that says you have an outstanding debit, and that is the prepayment you made. Oh, that's an old one. I'm wrong. Okay. I'll show you what I mean, what's going on. So, in the journals, bank journal. Thing is, if you look in the bank journal and you have an incoming payment and outgoing payments tab, there is no account here. Some businesses, when they record a payment, like I did, they don't want a journal entry posted. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a preference. However, if you want to manage prepayments, overpayments, underpayments, etc., Odoo needs to specify account here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the outstanding payments, and I'll do the same thing here just because this is my preference. And save. So now what will happen, if I go back to that payment that we created in the bills, payments, I'm going to reset the draft, and I'll confirm it. Actually, let me just reset the draft and just cancel altogether. I'll create a new one. Gemini. Sometimes if you just reduplicate, it's going to follow the old settings and configuration. There we go. Now that I confirmed, you actually have a journal entry. And the journal entry is going to hit outstanding payments as we expected and accounts payable. Odoo knows that there's an open balance with this vendor because of this account. It is a debit to what is normally a liability, which means if you're an accountant or an accounting nerd, a debit to a liability is actually the negative liability. You don't owe anybody, you are owed something. So in this case, because I have a negative liability, a debt that I paid in advance, the vendor actually owes me. So now if I go back to the bill and refresh the screen, you see that payment there. So because I kind of broke the flow, I'm going to repeat it again. You create the purchase order for the products. You don't receive it quite yet. You prepayment and pay it this way via the payments here, making sure that the journal has the outstanding payments or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. It will create not this one actually. Where is it? This one. We'll create the journal entry. And then when you finally create the final, you receive the products, then you create the final bill. You come to here the bill, the 7,000. I add the prepayment, and voila. The only issue with this approach is that you're not hitting a prepayment account. So there's pros and cons of either way. One, you create an extra document, prepayment account. Last that you'll see it in the balance sheet. The other, but you don't have that connection. That, oh, by the way, Odoo's letting you know that you have a prepayment. Or you do the simpler way where you just have a payment in advance, but it won't hit that same account. That said, you could entirely, if you wanted to, if this is the only use case where you prepay things, fine, you can actually set the prepayment account here. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad solution either, actually. So you get the best of both worlds. Hopefully that helps. If there's someone with more accounting knowledge or ideas, don't hesitate to speak up. All right. Let's move on. Angel Dark Creeper. Is that your real name? Could you show how to use e-commerce rentals? I'm having some trouble with the settings. How can I make it so that customers can rent products on the same day? Let's go take a look at that one. Let's make sure I have e-commerce installed. I also need to install rental. I vaguely remember something about it being either easy or not possible. One of the two. We're at the end of the spectrum here. But let's see. Let's wait for Odoo to load. Maybe you've already seen this. I'm going to skip this for now. It's not part of the main scope of this question at the moment. Let's also install rental. Give it a second. Odoo needs to think on this early Thursday morning, or wherever you are, it still needs to think. All right. So rental application, we have our rental products. One thing I want to highlight to you, depending on which menu you go to, Odoo will change the filters. So purchase, inventory, manufacturing, sales, purchase, whatever, what have you, you'll see a different filter. So in this case, when you go to the product from the rental menu, you have a rental filter. So we have this projector. Let's see, it is a rental product. We are going to specify what the prices are, 3 hours, etc. Go to website, so it is published. So let's make sure that we have in our website our payment providers. Do we have a demo turned on? We do not. We have a wire transfer, that's fine. Let's do the demo. And now let's go back to the e-commerce and let's go shopping. What was it again? It was the projector. There it is. Projector, okay. Rental period, all right. So we can see it's by the hour today, so it's going to be doing it for 3 hours, 4 hours, 3, because I can count. I can change that to a specific time period, so let's just do next week at I'm a teacher, so I'm going to go early morning, and I'm also going to just do it for 1 hour. Well, not for 1 day. I'm going to do it at the end of the day because, you know, I'm busy. Actually, I was going to do this earlier because I had to get to the school on time. And apply. So there you go. And add to cart. You can see the pricing. So at the moment, it's 19.25 euros per hour for 9 hours, because you can see the 3-hour price. And it's essentially just doing it through every multiples. Add to cart. View the cart. And just pay. Now the thing is, obviously, you can put whatever payment details you want. And it's good to go. But now you need to go to the store and pick it up. Unless in your use case you're doing something more like you're delivering. So you want to make it so they can rent on the same day. So I went against your use case, so I apologize. Let's go back to the projecteur. Ah, okay, I see your problem. So it is already, let's see if they'll let me do it. Add to cart. So far so good. It is today in 1 hour for 3 hours. Pay. Great. So now, so it seems to work just fine. The next step would have to be in the rental application. We now see the orders here. Just for your information, the e-commerce only automates the creation of a sales order. That's all it does. So it does the whole create new, it does the whole adding the right products, whatever prices, etc., etc. So the best way to test the flow, if you're setting up Odoo for the first time, just test it from a sales order, test it from a repair order, test it, or so rental or subscription, because all of those are the same type of document anyway. It's a sales order with different products for rental or subscriptions. So you test the flow in Odoo first in the back end and then reproduce it on e-commerce. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot more time configuring e-commerce and try to troubleshoot where the error is. So make sure it works in the back end without e-commerce first. So it seems to work just fine. Angel Dark Creeper. But then the next step would be for me to come in here and say, okay, they picked it up. So I maybe want to know more about your use case, if there's what issues you're experiencing in that case, so that way we can work to resolve it. I need to know what the issue is. You can go to our help desk team for freezies. They will help you out. Otherwise, talk to your account manager, and if you want to work directly with Odoo or a partner, either choice is not bad. All right, John, if that's your real name, can you help me make an allowance for employees which will be hourly based for their payroll? So for an allowance, I'm assuming that you're giving them money. Maybe I need more information. You're giving them money to spend for whatever they want. Maybe expenses, perhaps. The payroll application is a doozy of a beast. Not as familiar with that one. Let's go take a look. I'm not sure that it is configured and set up for allowances, but I would like to know more about, great, first bug of the day. Okay, it's related to the HR, it's your fault, John, that I got this bug. I'm kidding, don't blame yourself. Let's see if it will load. Let's go to the apps and just refresh. Aha, we broke it. All right, we're back. Nope, we're not back. All right. Nope, I'm just another customer. I didn't want to be a customer. Let's log in as a super user. I don't have my phone on me. That's not going to work. Maybe it will work. Nope. Screwed. But I will do this, so... I'm already in my databases. Where are we? That's the one. If it asks me to sign in again, okay, so there's a bug. I'm not sure what's going on, but did it install payroll? It did install payroll. No, it did not install payroll. It did, but it didn't. Let's see if we can fix it. Let's give it a second to think. Nope. I'm not sure if the payroll application saved me from this question, but it's not. Let me try one more thing. Great, maybe that will work. I'm not sure. So yes, John, I would need more information regarding what the allowance is, because I can see it as being you can use this money to buy whatever you want on our store, or you can use this money as like a expense that, hey, this is your limit for the expenses of the month and that's your allowance. Sounds more like the first one, I believe. I mean, is it cash you're giving them, or is it like a card that you're giving them? I think I would need more information, John, before I can give you a better answer. So if you can write that down, let me know. Otherwise, I will move forward. For now, I think this might just be a more complex use case, especially with payroll specifically, to give you a more fleshed out, better answer than what I can give you at the moment. Thank you, John. All right. Thanks for showing the prepayment. I'm an Odoo Online. Great. Recommended by Odoo Sales. Fantastic. Would be great to integrate the functionality in future versions. It's too manual at the moment for a common operation. I agree. It is definitely too manual. It's feedback that I've sent before, and I'm sure other people have sent as well. Now, on Odoo Online, developments are possible, customizations are possible. If you want to customize it specifically for your need, that is A-OK. You can come to Odoo directly through online or a partner who will essentially assess what makes the most sense from a flow perspective and how you want to customize it specifically to your needs. That said, I can push the PO again to see how we can make it a more standard feature. But things happen and change all the time. Maybe it could be coming out next version. And by version, I mean not necessarily 20, but even 19.1 or 19.2. But I'd have to look into that. All right. A lot of you are shy with your questions. So I'm going to go to my other questions. There we go. Let's go back. So my client always receives slightly more or slightly less than what is invoiced, resulting in a purchase order. There's always something to invoice. Is there a way around it that we can change this behavior? Not really, because you can't really control for that. So I'm going to show you how we would approach this. Let's first think about the use case. You buy something, you're promised 10 units, 10 pounds, 10 kilos, whatever you want to call it. However, you receive, for whatever reason, 9.8. Maybe it's fish, maybe it's produce, maybe it's something where you don't accurately can measure exactly the quantity because it's variable. You want, I mean, I go to a butcher and I ask for 3 kilos of chicken. They're not going to cut that piece of chicken into the right slices just so that I can get exactly 3 kilos. No, it's going to be like 3.1 or 2.9. So that's normal. Let's create a new product. Let's just call it fish. We're going to make it per kilogram, whatever it is. I'm not sure the going rate these days. Let's just use 2.99 and save. We'll track inventory because we care. Would I do track inventory for fish? Not really, because I guess you could. But I mean, fish is one of those things that you're quickly going through. You want to make it fresh. You're buying and selling. You're doing it manually. This track inventory is if you really, I mean, I guess you want to do it by lots, perhaps. We'll leave it as is. I'm sure there's a use case for either end. So I'm going to go to my orders, fishmonger, and we do fish. And let's say I'm buying 100 kilograms. Unit price. Actually, let's make it $9.99. Great. So I'm buying 100 kilos of fish. And in fact, before we do that, we can look at the billing policy like we did previously. Purchase tab, control policy, on ordered, on received. We'll just do on received. And the vendor says, okay, we're shipping you 100 kilograms. Now, the thing is, we go in and we actually end up, we see that we didn't actually get 100 kilograms. We got 1.56 kilograms. That's not a problem necessarily. It is what it is. We validate. If it's more, it's not a big deal. We go to the PO. We'll see that it's going to correctly update everything. even though I'm not sure why the 999 didn't stick. That's another question for another day. And then I just go to the accounting application, create a new bill for the fishmonger, and autocomplete. And as you can see, it will automatically take that. But this question from this random person, I'm not sure what it was doing in the back end there, is that what happens if you receive less than the 100 kilos? So in this case, it's fine. We pay, and we're done. This is nothing to worry about. And we save the build. We refresh. The build will be up to date. Done. Now, let's do this again. But this time, we're receiving... Let's try that again. Maybe I didn't do the 999. Maybe I made a mistake. Okay, maybe it was a human error. Just to validate. Yeah, human error. I pressed the wrong button. All right. So now I'm going to receive, but instead, that's 99.34. Great. And I validate. Thing is, I'm not going to expect to receive that remaining 0.56, whatever, math, kilos. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to request it. So in fact, I'm not going to create a back order. This is one of those times where you need to read the message that comes up. Again, too many times I've seen people look at a pop-up message, freak out because it popped up at them and say, no, discard. That's okay. It's okay to click and read it a little quick. And I say, actually, no, this is a good message to see. I'm going to say no back order because I'm not going to receive it. Finite. Go back to the purchase order. You'll see that. And voila. So I go to the bill. I create a new one for the same vendor. Select the PO, 17, and confirm. Again, same mistake as always. And voila. The thing is, if we go back to look at this, the quantity is 100. The received is 99.34. Billed is 99.34. Look at the POs, fishmonger. We can look at billing status. In this case, Odoo says it's fully billed. So maybe it's also important to note maybe what version we're talking about here. In this case, it shows nothing to bill. I don't see any issue with that at the moment. Now, if for whatever reason you don't like that you see this, because it causes maybe reporting issues, maybe in older versions it would actually say there's still more to bill, just change this. Leave it alone, change it. It doesn't actually change anything here. It's not more accurate in terms of what actually happened in reality, and you're done. Now, does this exist on purchase? I forget. No, but it does on sales. No, it is right there. You can just lock it too, and you have to never worry about it again. It is locked, and our team is ignoring it. Voila. That won't stop it from being showing billable necessarily, but just more flexibility for you. All right. For the payment method for prepayment, you like my idea. Thank you. Could you get 2 separate payment methods, one dedicated for prepayments? Yes, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. The only reason... Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Easy. Journals, bank. What I would do is you have manual payments, which would be the prepayment or whatever, and then you can do prepayments. Well, what I would do is manual payment again, but it would call prepayments, and this is where you can do the prepayment accounts. Voila. So same bank, and the reason I wouldn't do a new journal is because it's coming from the same account, and you still want to perform your bank reconciliation. So it makes sense that it needs to be in the same account, but you're changing the journal entry, or the journal entry. Yes. Great. Glad you like that one. All right. Okay. Angel Dark Creeper, aka Keitano. If I mispronounce it, please yell at me. I can book the rental through Odoo for today. Fantastic. But when I try through the website, if I set it for today, it says your rental product cannot be prepared so quickly, rents later. Don't apologize for your fun names. It's okay. Angel Dark Creeper, aka Keitano. It's always fun to have a bit of personality. So, you're saying that when I go back to rental, that you cannot do it. I think, because I was able to do it, but the why? That's probably why right there. Your reserved products. So it's likely that you have this set at a different value that prevents you from doing it. And which, I mean, I think it makes sense. In this case, it's 3 minutes before, so it's fine. Maybe you need time to prepare. Maybe you have a mixed situation where you're renting online, but you're also renting in person. And so you have a process in the back end. When an order comes in, you move the product aside and you tell your staff you cannot rent any of these out because it's for an online order. So that's when you'd have a reserved products functionality there. So I think that might be it without diving specifically into your database. Let's try it. Reserved products, let's make it 5 hours. And I'm going to try to do it today because, again, there it is. That's your problem, Kitano. So hope that fixes everything. There's nothing wrong with this issue. It's just preference business processes. Great, thank you. Again, your cool name is still cool. Okay, both names are cool. All right, Mohammed, is there any free Odoo certification which is adding for my LinkedIn profile? No, there is no free certification. It is all paid. At the end of the day, it's just a little badge that says that you know Odoo. So I wouldn't stress about it too much, but it might be added value to have that certification at some point. I think it's just mostly for partners who want to get more types of leads and get a higher ranking to show up on our webpage. So I wouldn't stress too much about needing the certification, but yes, it's nice to have, but not free. All right, let's see if any more questions came in. At the moment, not. Again, you're all shy. Bring your friends, parents, family, kids, whoever, to ask more questions. All right. So I've answered this one. We're moving on. Hopefully these questions give you some more ideas. You would like to store in the fields on my client the date of the first invoice they ever received, whether the invoice was made in Odoo or prior to Odoo in a previous ERP. So it was a client question. My first thought would be, what's the added value? What are you doing with this information? How is it going to help you generate more revenue? How's it going to help you run your business more effectively? I'm not sure. Now, it says in a field. Does it say where, what kind of field? The answer to how this information, or where I put this, would depend completely on the answer of how you use this information. Because if it's just to have it, contacts, Abigail, notes, date of first invoice, blah. There, it's done. Now, do you need a custom field for it specifically? Do you need it for reporting? In which case, notes wouldn't be a good solution because you want to be able to group by it, etc. In which case, you could use Studio to add a custom field. Tags wouldn't be a good solution, but I mean, I guess it depends on how it's used because tags doesn't group very well. I mean, it groups, but it's just very weird to see it on the screen. Now, if you have existing invoices, I mean, you have the invoiced screen. I mean, if you want to know the date of first invoice, if it's a past historic, okay, you could add it there. Otherwise, you can just go to invoices and you can group by partner. And you can also group by, let's say, invoice month or invoice year or what day or what have you. You can do multiple. And so I can see for Deco Addict, my first invoice was this year and December of 2025 on the 3rd of December. That's how you could do it. It's not a custom field. Now, there's nothing wrong with creating custom fields, but I do think that if, as the classic Jurassic Park quote says, just because we can doesn't mean we should. Customizing with Studio very easily can run you down the path of just customizing everything just because you think it's easy. So I would take a moment to think if it's actually necessary. All right, new question. I sell to my customers with Incoterms, DAP. I can only recognize the revenue after delivery confirmation. No, it's okay, don't worry. All my customers prepay for their purchases. I need to ship the goods with an invoice attached to the package. Can I create the invoice but recognize the revenue only after delivery confirmation? Would you recommend a virtual in-transit warehouse to track that? So let's dissect that a bit further. There's a few solutions here that we need to look into. So only recognize revenue after delivery confirmation. So in reality, I would use the Odoo prepayments workflow in the sales application. We saw it on the purchase side, so let's just do it on the sales side. I actually like this functionality a lot. I think it's very fun. We go down payment, maybe it's not there at the moment, so let's just create a sale. We'll find our favorite customer, Azure Interieur, and we will sell 5555, and they want to buy 100. Okay, so I can see the problem here already. Well, it depends on what your accounting needs are and how you want to see it from the accounting side of things. Because I have clients that do one of two ways here. I keep forgetting where I'm supposed to look. Pro forma. You can issue a pro forma invoice. Now in Odoo, a pro forma invoice is only a PDF. So if I go to my order, I send pro forma, give it a second to think, and now you have a pro forma that you can send them and they can prepay this. Whether it's 50, 100, you decide. By 50, 100, I mean 50% or 100%. Now you also have this that you can give to the authorities that they need, and then you go through the flow of just receiving payment from here, which we can just finish up and doing anyway. You do it on the accounting side. Payments, new. Let's say that they pay, what is it? I can do math. I'm going to do math the easy way for myself right now. Also a small hidden feature you might not be aware of. So equals 14,759.10 divided by 2. Voila, there's the down payment. So I could create a down payment from Azure Interior for that amount, confirm, great. Then later you can, well, you would have confirmed this first with that pro forma, then you would deliver, disable SMS, and then after that's delivered, you create the invoice, regular invoice, and if once you confirm it, you'll see that outstanding prepayment, and you just assign. Where did it go? That's Azure Interior, Azure Interior. Why did it not show up? 05. Supposedly that's the one. Did I do it because of that's why. Currency. Someone changed the currency on me. So yeah, now you go, you add it, the currency's still there. Okay, now you do the difference. Partially paid. There, and that's the remaining amount is due. Looks awfully wrong. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere. That's fine, don't worry. So that's how you would do that if you want to send an actual invoice. The reason why I hesitated is because the down payment workflow doesn't issue a invoice for the products. Now you can do a combination of both. So if I were to confirm this and then perform a down payment invoice, 50%, Odoo will create an invoice for down payment. You would specify this with also a prepayment account. I'd actually create a new one. A liability because you're getting money in advance. And now you confirm, you have a down payment, they pay for it. Go back to the sale, deliver the products, validate. Now, if you wanted, as I said, still have an invoice that shows everything, you could actually just print a pro forma. It's not going to show the down payment that you see on the screen, actually. You'll see the down payment there, which is nice, which would be cool to have on the purchase side. If you're listening, Fabian, that's for message for you. Then you can just print the pro forma, send that in with the goods so that you have that at the border, etc., whatever you need. And now you create the invoice. It's a regular invoice deducting the down payment. And now you can see it automatically deducts that prepaid amount and you confirm. That's how I'd recommend doing it from a prepayment side from the accounting. That depends on the accounting needs you have, what kind of journal entries you need to see in Odoo. Then, next question is, you need to ship goods with an invoice attached. Okay, fine. Can I create the invoice but recognize the revenue only after delivery confirmation? That's what we just did. That's a standard configuration. Recognizing the revenue only after. That's just changing the accounts on the down payment, which I think, they moved it. Now I just remembered. If we go to product categories, did they move it? Maybe they moved it again. Where is it? I don't know where it is anymore. I remember seeing it on the product category before. Maybe they moved it again. So I need to think about it and talk to internal people. You would essentially set maybe there's a down payment product now again. Nope. They change things every version, so I can't keep up. You just make sure it hits the right account. And then would you recommend a virtual in-transit warehouse? I'm going to be nitpicky with your word choice, just because. I would not do another warehouse. Not at all. Another warehouse will just be too complicated with incoming shipments and deliveries that you need to manage. These are operations, and every warehouse needs an incoming shipment operation and a delivery operation. But what you can do, I need to turn on advanced routes. You can have a two-step delivery. So if we turn on advanced routes like I did, I'll just do it again very quickly. Routes, multi-step routes in the settings of, doesn't matter which application you go into, because you see Odoo will search in several different settings. Then when you go to the warehouse directly, you have outgoing shipments, deliver, pick, then deliver. This is intended for operations in the warehouse where you go down the aisle, you pick an item, and you put it in and then you have one step for that and one step for shipping it out. You can do the same thing here for your deliveries. And so then you would just do a two-step delivery when it comes to these. It's not a virtual location. I mean, in a way, you can consider it that, but it's just an internal location that's still on its way. And you can see how much inventory you have in transit and not in transit. Let's just see what that looks like, because showing is better than telling. Sales, duplicate. It's the correct warehouse anyway. We have one delivery. And when we look at the delivery, we see, does it have more information as to where it's going? Not here. We're going to force it. Lots and serial numbers. And so this is the first move that actually moved it from stock to another location. In fact, if we take a look, you'll see there's a next transfer here. And if we go to look at inventory for this cable management box, locations, group by location, and then product, you have an output location. So the output location is a transit location you can consider. You can rename it as you see fit. And that is, okay, I have X number of units at whatever value in that location, in transit. And then when it's actually out, well, then you go back, next transfer, and validate where it's actually going from source location output to delivery. There you go. That's how I'd handle that. Hopefully that's useful for you. All right, Ketan. My products are rented for 2 or 7 days. My website only shows the customer the day, and I think it's still receiving the hourly rates, which is why it's unable to rent for today. In which case, I think it's just product configuration, Ketan. Just make sure that when you go to filter on rental products, you need to make sure that you have all this configured correctly. Pricing, weekly, daily, and all that. And that should fix everything, I hope. But otherwise, you can talk to support. You can also reach out to us directly if you wanted to, but of course that takes consulting hours. All right, Felix. When will Odoo Dativ export be available for Germany? Dativ export be available? I think it's already available. maybe I'm mistaken. Deasly email limit reached. Curses. Companies. Whoops, wrong one. Let's create a new company. Easy. For my understanding, I mean, I guess you're talking about the invoice, exporting the invoices available for Germany, or connecting automatically, kind of like Peppol, to a third party. That's fine. I mean, I've worked with German clients, and I know we have the data fields in Odoo. I don't see why. I think it should be available, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe there's a step that I'm missing somewhere along the way that you're asking for. So we have Germany installed. Now that if we go to our German company, actually there was already one there. Someone created before. So now if we go to accounting and settings, we have our German localization. Fantastic. Dativ. We have our reporting, so we have our data reporting. And then if we go to our contacts or customers, it's supposed to be there as well. Oh. This company belongs to a different, this contact belongs to a different company. Doesn't. Accounting. It's hiding somewhere here. Don't remember where it is, but it is there. Let's ignore those. That's just access right errors. It's not an Odoo error. Oops. Data vendor, data customer, so they are there. I guess I need to know more. I think, from my experience, it is, because we've worked with clients but there. So I don't know the answer to that. But I can, if you reach out to RSH at Odoo, I can get more information. All right. Next question. I'm going to try my best to pronounce it. Liez, I apologize in advance. Or actually, after the fact. Why not adding a chatbot answering users' questions, helping with direction, where to find what users are looking for within the platform? Good question, and in fact, actually, that's something that is a goal of Odoo. Fabian wants to make it so that you could have a chatbot in Odoo at some point where you can just ask it away and AI will point you in the right direction. So that is a goal. It's a great idea. You can take credit for it. All right, next question. Ashish. What is the correct Odoo configuration for when the outgoing mail server validates the sender's domain and when the client signs the quotation, it generates an email, but the author is the client? SMT rejects this email. How do I configure this correctly in Odoo? Oh, you're asking me the technical stuff, Ashish. Sender's domain. Okay, so you sent an email through the email server, and when the client signs the quotation, it generates an email. Okay, but the author is the client. Yes. SMTP rejects this email. How do I configure it? I mean, the outgoing mail servers are not a hard configuration. Now, I mean, this is all we have here. So it sounds like a lot of this setup that if it's rejecting it, it might be something going on your outgoing mail server. Because, I mean, there's very limited configuration here. So I would look, Ashish, at your actual outgoing mail server configuration to see what that looks like and what's going on there. This is also, just like payroll, one of my weak spots, so I'm not sure I can help you with that, but I will do my best. Again, I recommend going to help desk for that one. That might be your best solution, Ashish. All right, burn through some questions very quickly. Please send more, I like them. If no more show up any moment, I'm going to go back to our repository of questions. So I think we touched this one a bit, answered. I don't think I would just do a notes field. All right, next question. If we have 100 active users, is it true the hardware requirements for CPU is minimum 16 and for the memory minimum 32 gigabytes? So there is, I guess what we're talking about could be, from a hardware perspective, I'm not quite sure. I've never implemented a on-premise installation for the service to set up a server. I'm not going to be able to answer that question, but maybe someone technical in the future will, so I'll leave that in the list for the future time. Oops, wrong button. Oh, actually, there was another question that I could have maybe answered. Also, does Odoo U offer bank accounts? No, we do not offer bank accounts. But at Odoo Experience, we talked about offering credit cards through third-party connections. So that could be something you're looking for. We are not a bank. What's the difference between the balance on the accounting dashboard and the balance on the account itself shown by Odoo? Okay, so this is an accounting question I think I can answer. And interrupt me with your own questions. Feel free. So this question is asking about, well, let's first dissect it. Accounting dashboard. That's where we are. There's no data here. Let's we go connect demo. We connect to a demo synchronization. Proceed. All right. As you can tell, these are all very real balances. Give it a second to load. And now we're looking at this here. So the question goes back to, what's the difference between the balance on the accounting dashboard and the balance in the account itself shown by Odoo? So this balance here is intended to be that of whatever's in your bank account. Let's go take a look to see if that's true. Fixed assets, yada yada. Cash on hand. In this case, no. So why is that? Well, if we take a look, we're going deep into the accounting weeds. So the moment you want to stop with accounting, you just ask a question. That's the price of stock. They're not talking about accounting. So when we look at the balance sheet and the cash account here, what we need to look at really is are the journal items. A journal item is, well, let's talk about journal entries first. A journal entry is one entry that happens, an invoice, a bill, a payment. And each one has to have a corresponding debit and a corresponding credit to be balanced. So if we look at bank, for example, we can see the total, all the transactions, and we can look maybe by date, year. Okay, that's a debit credit, so technically net zero. We look at the balance. 0. So why is it net 0? Let's maybe take a look at here. Okay, so payments and bank expense account. Okay. So normally, so what's going on here? It's hitting bank expense account. The reason for that is that when Odoo connects to a bank, in fact, we can take a look. It looks at the transactions. It's pulling transactions from the bank directly. And you can actually see, opening for synchronization, 3.5. And we have here, we don't have 3.5. So whenever Odoo pulls a transaction, it actually creates a journal entry. And in fact, we can see that right now. So I think it's the 1,500 and 1,500 right there. Odoo does this intentionally so that you can theoretically have an up-to-date accounting balance with what comes into the bank, assuming everything is all correct and up to date. Now, the reason why they could be different is, well, let's take a look. All these are hitting the suspense accounts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. So now if we take a look at the balance sheets, the running balance is negative. And that's most likely because you have a previous balance that's incorrect. Well, in this case, it's not the case. Let's see. Running. In this case, it could be a currency difference. Because if we take a look, it's all going up. It's going up. 26357. It could also be that we have this here. Let's take a look here. I'm going to try something. Counting is complicated, huh? 3501. This one. 2130. Is that the difference? It is not. Well, usually what's going to happen is it would all come here. We're also maybe looking at time periods. Maybe that's incorrect. Normally it's supposed to tie up. And it could be that it's probably because missing transactions. I'm fudging this answer, but thankfully someone's saving us with another question. All right. In my country localization, some accounts have a tag that perfectly matches the account number itself. Okay. While others are totally different. I understand that tags are used for financial reports. That's true. Is it possible to explain the logic of the tags in accounts and the impact on financial reports? I'm concerned when creating new accounts which tags I should choose. Okay. This question is specific to reporting, but also your localization, obviously, as you said. And I'll give you some examples of how this works. Let's go to this US San Francisco company. The reason why I go here is because I remember that the reporting configuration is relatively simple. So if I go to my balance sheets, profit and loss, doesn't matter. I'm in developer mode, as you can see here. And you can even see this gear icon right there. And when I open up, click on the gear, you actually look at the configuration and the back end of how this report looks. And so let's, for example, jump into operating expenses. And if we see here, we can actually see the formula. So what's happening is that this structure, it's using, in this case, it's looking at the account type. Account type equals expense. So if I go to another tab, accounting, chart of accounts, let's go to developer mode as well. This here is the account type field. So you can see current assets, receivables, etc., etc. So in this basic report that we have here, Odoo is just saying, okay, everything that's an expense, put it in this category. Everything that's a expense depreciation or other expense, put it in other expenses. In this case, very simple version of this report. Now, if we go to something like Belgium, and we look at this report, am I looking at the right one? Is there localization installed? Let's reload the localization. That's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. Balance sheet. Maybe it fixed the profit and loss. It did. So if we could take a look at the profit and loss now. This doesn't look right. I'm going to go to balance sheet because this one looks more right. And look at the gear icon. You can see that it's now using prefixes to configure these reports. You can see the different formulas here. Prefix 24, prefix 26. Where else was I that I saw a different one? So essentially what's happening is that if we take a look at this, you can use different kinds of computation engines. And so in your case, in your fiscal localization for your country, you can use tags as well. Odoo does use this in other reports. For example, the one that's standard, I know by default, is the cash flow statements. Let's see if this will work. In this case, it's a very custom one. So we can't actually look at the details of it. But the cash flow statement works by going to a chart of accounts. I think we need to go to profit and loss. We need to go to a income account. And the cash flow statement is using a tag, operating activities, to know that any transaction from this type of entry, from this category, will go into the different corresponding categories. So cash equivalents, we have your operating activities, investing activities, cash flow, and unclassified. So in this case, this is a highly custom report using the tags. So we need to dive more into your localization specifically, but essentially some custom reports based on localization will use tags to define what kind of transactions need to go into which bucket. And that's how you should look into it. So to know what tags to assign based off of the account, well, you need to know where in your financial report that account needs to sit and assign the correct tag. Cash flow, you wouldn't be able to see it, but as you saw before, you can see it, not in this one, but the profit and loss balance sheet. Let's see what our German company friend has. Also prefix. This is Belgian, hold on. Refresh. Profit and loss. Nope, not this one. Yeah, it's also using. No, this is actually, there you go. Germany is a good example of using tags. So account ID tags is in. Now we're getting technical here because it's actually using an ID. So if you wanted to customize and modify the financial report that you have for your country, you need to first look at once you look at it and study it, it becomes a bit easier to understand, but essentially saying, okay, for prepayments and on intangible assets, only show accounts that have this tag ID number. How do you get the ID number? Well, let's go to configuration, account tags. You can see the name. Will it give us the ID here? No. You can see the tag name, might be easier. But for example, I'm going to show you 120. How do I find a ID 120? Custom filter, ID 120. There it is. Now, how can we reasonably expect you to know what the ID of each account is? We can't. We don't. But what you can do, actions, export, standard solution, ID. And now when you export that, you get all the IDs right here. What does that represent? Well, incidentally, these IDs seem to almost match the row of this Excel file. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fact, if it weren't for this header, they would match exactly. Odoo is just like a PostgreSQL database with models, tables, fields, etc. So each field would be like this. Each field would be a column. Each row will be a record. So every time you create a new tag, it creates a new ID just by one. So the bottom one is whatever ID it is. Now, if you didn't want to do it in Excel, well, you can just easily use Studio. Not sure it's necessary because it's like a one-time configuration. You can use Excel to export this data, as you just saw. And I can use Studio to bring in the ID field. And there you go. There you have it. So that's what Odoo is using when it comes to tags. Hopefully that is clear for you. Let's go back to that challenging accounting question. Unless someone else stops me. This is a threat. All right. So if we take a look at the balance, it's showing you what's going on here. I would need to diagnose this a bit further. Maybe I forgot this one at some point. I did know it. But essentially, let me change back to our Lord and Savior. Actually, which account is this? Which company? Configuration. Not quite. It's a German company. If I switch. Okay. Let's look at the German company side. So we have the balance. This is maybe not the less fun, sexy stuff. But the balance here is intended, supposed to be coming from your transactions. So 6793, 6793. That's what that's coming from. Now, if, the bank keeps track of its own records of your transactions, and you keep track of your own transactions. In an ideal world, if everything is clean, your balance sheet report in here will match. It's 4190.93, but it doesn't. The reason why it doesn't is most likely because you have additional transactions in your books that the bank does not see. So, for example, when you synchronize for the first time, it's likely that you're going to need to create an initial synchronization entry or not. For example, it might be good to start fresh from the beginning of the year. And because if we take a look at these transactions here, we do see some from the bank. Let's take a look. So let's say it's 9667. 9667, and you do see that. So it is matching there. But what does it not see? It sees the 850, it sees the 850. 2000, does it see the 2000? It does. 1275. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so there's definitely more transactions here, but also the bank account itself is an asset that rolls forward between year and year. So that means you have to also look at this from. If we look at last year, there might be something, but in this case there isn't. So for us today, 4190, there's a transaction on the 6277. Is that one missing? Yep. Nope, it's right there. It's one of those. Definitely missing. Yeah. So it's usually the difference between what your bank sees as well as what you have in your general ledger. All right. Someone is coming with a question. How can I activate HS codes, custom code, and country of origin for my products? Great. So HS code and country of origin is intended for, obviously, traceability and tracking. So in the inventory application, configuration, and settings, you need to turn on lots and serial numbers. It already is. I'm not sure that's necessary per se. Now, I've run into this issue myself as well, where when you open a product, go to inventory, it's supposed to be here. When you turn on traceability, it shows up. Now, if you have, for some reason, and I've seen it myself, where this doesn't show up, there's an easy application that you can turn on. Apps. I'll remove this and go stock underscore. That's stock underscore. Where is it? It's one of these stock ones, unless it's underscore stock. I think it's sale underscore stock. This one, I think. But I will verify for that right now for you. Views, underscore code. I've done this several times, so that's why I'm remembering. There it is. It's this view here. I'm not going to go slow here because you don't really need to know that. And if you really are interested in how I did this, you can rewind. I think I did this maybe in another video as well. And apps. Oops. View. The stock.delivery. That's the one you need. If for whatever reason turning on serial numbers doesn't make it appear, go to the apps and install stock.delivery underscore delivery. That will solve your problem. Great. Moving on to the next question. I'm so struggling. Is there a way I can see yesterday's stock which was applied? I want an inventory adjustment report to show me what was the stock before applied and what was counted and what was the difference between before applied. And in this, is there a way I can select any date I want and time? I am so struggling in this, I can't be able to see stock count of previous day. Wrong way. So, no, apps, sorry, inventory. I get the answer to this question will also depend on which version you're on, as the case is the case all the time. For example, in the inventory reports and stock or locations, you have this report here, and you can look at stock at date. It's this little button up top left corner. Specify a period, let's say the beginning of December. confirm, and it's showing you, there's a date here, created on, I think created on, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, so we're looking at the beginning of December. Can we do by day, just to be sure I did it correctly? It's as of today. But also this doesn't count. It's cheating because this is test data that I created today, technically. So everything was created today, technically. But yes, so you're essentially, the way to do that would be the inventory at date report, specify a date, whatever it is, and it will show that up that way. Now, in previous, I guess, are we talking about, like if you updated entries or imported stock in the past? For example, when you started implementing Odoo and you have to update your inventory from the first day, you can't backdate inventory, or you couldn't backdate inventory in the past with version 18, at least in earlier. It was all from the day's dates. But now in 19, you can backdate because we've added that functionality where you do your inventory adjustments, physical inventory, specify, am I correct in this? The accounting dates. That's what you're going to look for here. Not the inventory date, but the accounting date of when that applied, so you can see from a financial perspective when it hits. That's mostly in that case. But otherwise, the best way to get that information will be in the stock report here, inventory at date. Now, if that is not correct enough, we can look into that further if you have additional questions. All right, another question came up. I'm on Odoo Online. I can't install third-party apps to see HS code and country of origin. That's not a third-party app. If you're on, I'm on online as well. This is an online database I created this morning. I don't have a developer hiding underneath the table coding things for me. This is just go to apps. You remove this app filter, stock _ delivery. So you should be able to do that without a problem. What's likely is, and then of course, I mean, you don't need to. Ideally, if you installed the setting, it should show up. Now, what installs this is, let's take a look. Maybe I can find what configuration installs this. I'm going to try something. I'm not really good at GitHub. I'm learning myself, but GitHub could be a good place to start. That's version 12. I'm not sure that applies. Issues code. Nope. I gotta sign in. Should be already in. But let's try that. There we go. Stock sales order. Not quite sure what I'm looking for here. It could be stock.delivery. Normally installing sales and inventory with turning on the lot serial numbers will solve that problem and install it automatically. Otherwise, what I'm guessing could be, it's just one of these settings that's turned on. It could, I'd be surprised if it's delivery methods. Yeah, very surprised if it would be that. Here, define reports, technical data, dependencies. So you need those. Yeah, I think, okay, it's delivery methods. You need to have delivery methods installed. So if I were to go back to settings, configuration, this one. Once you install delivery methods, you don't need to do the hard way where I search for the view and install that application that was hidden in the filters. You just need to turn this on and it will allow HS code and country of origin to appear. Great. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, let's continue on. Answered this one. Why emails are going from notifications at my company in Odoo? Is there a way to send the emails from a specific team or specific users? So this is going into email servers. So when you use Odoo, Odoo has their own email going server that uses a catch-all essentially. What happens is, let me just show you an example. When I come here and I send a quote in the chatter, Odoo is using a outgoing mail server that Odoo has by default. It's capturing some information. There's some hidden code in there. It sends it to the customer, and it comes from catch-all. The reason it needs to come from catch-all is because then when they reply back to it, Odoo is going to catch this email, and in that code that we sent in it, Odoo knows, okay, so this email that was received is actually linked to this sales order in this model, this record specifically, and so it's going to dump it back here. Otherwise, it wouldn't know where to do that. And so that catch-all is what does that. Now, you can customize that catch-all by, if you don't want to use the standard Odoo ones, you go to the outgoing mail servers and you create your own outgoing mail server that has whatever from that you need. Keep in mind that any email sent will use your email signature that you've specified, and the email actually does come from you in Odoo, and it will actually show that it comes from you, but the reply to will be the catch-all specifically, and that's why it's need to do that. If a customer deletes that catch-all and puts your email back in, it actually bypasses Odoo entirely, and you're going to get it in your inbox, but Odoo is not going to see that back and forth conversation. So be cognizant of that. No more questions? Everyone tired of hearing me speak? That's okay. We have another. Okay, great. Oh, there's a bit of a long question. So part 1. For our e-commerce business, all payments captured via a gateway. Okay, so we're using a third-party payment acquirer. The amount that hits my bank account is always lower than what's been invoiced to the customer. Yes. All right. So you're using a third party, maybe like Stripe or what have you, and they're probably removing a fee to use their service. That's normal. So there are 2 ways to handle this. For example, like PayPal, you can create, what I would do is a journal for PayPal. And it's a bank, what have you. And you would treat them as a bank, essentially. And I'd connect here with PayPal. I can actually see it there. So you create a journal for PayPal. You get all the transactions there. And there you're supposed to be able to reconcile 100% with your invoices and payments you received. And then when PayPal dumps that money or you withdraw that money into your bank account or whatever third-party gateway, you would perform an internal transfer. You transfer from one account to the other, like depositing, and then you reconcile those. Now, that might be not what's going on. I just gave an example of PayPal. Stripe does something similar, I believe. Otherwise, maybe it's going directly into your account, but they take a little bit off the top because of the fees. So in that case, what I would recommend you do, so for example, we have this invoice coming in payment here for $738. We can reconcile it, shows $750. All right. They paid less than what's on the invoice. All right, great. Did it work 100%? In this case, it did the full write-off, which is not what we want. What was it? 750 something or something, whatever. Actually, let's unreconcile this. What am I doing? So yeah, let's say do the internal transfers right there. But Outstanding payment, okay. The reason why it's doing partial, it's okay. Amount due. It disappeared. What I would do, and I think I just need to rehash my memory on this part, is you essentially, as you can see, you have these purple buttons come up, line with bank fees, etc. What you need to do is you create models, essentially. And so you would create a model here, bank fees or whatever, line with bank fees. And essentially, any difference made between what was on the invoice and what you received, say like percentage of balance, would go into another account automatically. So in this case, what's happening is it's looking at the line item of the transaction, the bank transaction you come in, and then it will assign it to an invoice, and any difference will automatically go into whatever account you say, bank fees, credit card charges, what have you, at 100%, so then it'll fully reconcile. And so what you're essentially getting, in a way, is that if I were to go to a customer invoice and pay, for example, let's say they didn't actually pay this amount, that's a bit less. Let's make it 4. You're essentially saying that €5 difference will be written off into bank fees. But instead of doing it manually on the invoice directly, it's happening on the bank feed. And so it just writes it off into that account automatically. And so as a reminder, that is what we call your models, reconciliation models, that you can configure and customize as you see fit. So those are the two different approaches. The right one depends on your specific use case. Any more follow-up questions?
No, I think he's still typing.
Still typing? Okay. Other people can ask questions as well.
Of course.
Okay. 15 minutes, you said? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
We have 15 more minutes?
Yeah, 15 more minutes.
All right, great. So let's keep going. So we answered this one. My emails don't appear correctly in dark mode after the migration. Everything is black on black. That one I'm not quite sure about. I won't be able to answer that one, I don't think. Let me just think about this one a bit further. My emails don't appear correctly in dark mode. It could be that for the background of the email is in black for some reason. Maybe an email that you sent out. I won't be able to answer that one. I'm not sure. Good question. I like to add the telephone number at the end of the address block on a quotation. How can I do that? That one might be a bit more technical and complicated. I think essentially you're modifying the XML of the report. Let's go take a look. I'm curious to see how that would look. So let's go to sales. Your questions take priority, of course, so don't forget to ask. Let me just see something else. Easy is with Studio. Reports. No, this won't give it to us, but they will look at the source. And what I'm looking at for invoice address. Okay, that's the shipping address, invoice address. And then well, it automatically includes, as you can see here, the name, phone number, address, name, phone number, no mark. I'm not as technical as I would like to be potentially, but I think, as you can see here, it already includes information. Let's close this and actually look at this customer. Do they have a phone number? They do. And so if we take a look and print this quote, yeah, it doesn't include it already. Essentially what I think would need to be done, I mean, it's just code modification, just code modification. You would need to essentially modify edit the HTML source here specifically to, unless there's another one. reports, no mail, web layout, studio. Yeah. It's going to be more technical. I think we're doing modeling a whole block, and inside that block it has information. So I think you'd have to either put something here or I'm missing something specifically. So it's a bit more heavy customization. You need to know XML and some basic coding in order to make that work. Odoo Studio would be limited in terms of what you can do there. All right. Not a perfect answer, but not a perfect human being. All right. What's the effect of changing the order of some views in Odoo? That one we can answer. This one's more technical. Let's go to a contact. And we got a question coming up.
Thomas.
It's from Thomas. Okay. After upgrading on Odoo Online, on the checkout page, I'm getting the pay button without any action. I can only see with no text. How can I reset the checkout page to restore the button? This would tie into a bit with what we were just talking about now. Well, first off, if you've upgraded on Odoo Online and you're getting this issue, I would open a ticket and let the upgrade team fix that, because that's their responsibility. But of course, you want to do it yourself. I understand and respect that. So let's see, where would that be? I would go to views. Is there a website? How about checkout? Nope. Website. Let's just say checkout again. Step checkout. Setup wizards. I'm not sure that these are. This could be it. The thing is, to reset a view, there isn't a. Okay, there it is a compare reset. You can try that, Thomas. Find the view. I'm not sure. This web sales checkout. It could be it. It looks like it. You can find the view, search for checkout, and compare and reset. Current arc. So it looks like it should be fine, and you can do a soft reset. So this is getting more technical. Another approach you could take, Thomas, to be maybe a bit more comprehensive is, honestly, what I would do is I'd go to apps again and go to e-commerce and upgrade. Maybe a fix happened or something, and you can upgrade it to reset all of the different views and everything installed. That could be a good solution to get the fix that you need. Otherwise, I would put the responsibility on the upgrade team who actually did the upgrade and request some assistance. All right, going back to the another question, I guess. No, part two, I'm not sure is there,
Yeah,
but
part two.
all right, part two. So remember, part one was e-commerce business, all payments captured via gateway. There's a difference between what was invoiced and what came in because most likely they took some off the top. The amount that hits my account is lower. There's nothing left. Bank statement shows 100. Invoiced to customer shows 110. So I can have a reconciliation model assign this missing 10 as an expense. Yes, you can have a reconciliation model to assign that 10 difference. That's the recommended approach. To give a more realistic example, I might have 3 sales orders, invoices, each 50 USD. My bank statement shows 147. Can I match those 3 invoices to it? Odoo understand that this extra 3 USD from the invoice came from an expense. Okay. I think to answer that, this goes back to the original question. Are you seeing a deposit of 147 into your account, or are you seeing individual transactions? Don't worry, don't apologize. So if you're seeing 147 in one lump sum, the problem is you need to perform a batch of some sort of batch payment. And you're not going to be able to reconcile that one lump sum with 3 invoices with a $3 difference to assign to a different account. So in which case that goes to my first use case, which I think is you need to create a journal like PayPal, Stripe, etc. Because most likely they have a list of all the transactions that have occurred on their end. With one of my clients, they do Stripe. Stripe does the same. They charge a Stripe, and then Stripe deposits into the account once a day or what have you. And then what I recommend is you create a Stripe journal. You get a list of transactions from Stripe directly, whether they give it to you via email or you can download it yourself, PDF, who knows, and upload it. I don't think you can connect directly, unfortunately. You get a list of those transactions. You reconcile those with the journal. Each of those transactions with the invoices you have in Odoo. And then you perform a deposit transfer from Stripe to your actual bank account, and then you reconcile that deposit transfer. That sounds like what the situation is. But if you're seeing 49, 49, 49, and each one of those has a $1 fee, well, then reconciliation model will handle that. So that's the nuance that you need to pay attention to. All right. I think we answered all those questions. Let's move on. I answered the upgrade one.
Yeah.
Okay. And the views and upgrade. Okay, great. What's the effect of changing the order of some views? We're going to get a bit technical again. So, if you recall, we'll start at the beginning. Odoo is like essentially an Excel file. So you have each column is a field, each row is a record. And Odoo's essentially, what we're seeing here is a visualization with views, taking the information in the back end of the object model schema, the database, and taking that model and using what we call XML views to convert that into a aesthetically pleasing visual aid for us to see that data. So in the back end of Odoo, there is a field called name, and the value of that is Abigail. So when we take a look at views, we have res.partner.form. That's the base view. That's where everything starts from. Now, the way I like to describe a view is, for some of you are, most of you maybe, who knows, are old enough to recognize this. Overhead projector. This bad boy. Where the teacher would have this in the classroom. You have the glass that shines light through. It bounces off a mirror, goes on the wall, and you can write on the glass itself, or you would have a overhead transparency paper, like that one, where you can see there, like a little plastic piece of paper that you can write on top. So, for example, when Odoo has a view like this, like this, just think of this. There's no sales tab, there's no accounting tab, etc. It's just contacts. Imagine that this view is the glass of this projector. You can write whatever you want on it, and then you can see it through the light. Now, if you want to make changes to that view, to whatever you wrote on before, like a picture or something, you would take a overhead transparency paper, one of these, you put it on top and draw whatever you want, and it would not impact the glass on the bottom. So that's what a view is, and how views stack on top of each other. And so when an upgrade happens, for example, they will take the transparency paper off, they'll change the code on the bottom, they'll put the transparency back down, and see if it aligns still with what everything works. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, they need to change something somewhere, whether on the transparency sheet itself or the glass, most likely the transparency sheet. And so what you're doing is you have an order of stack of different views, pieces of paper on top of each other, the plastic one. And so each of these views has a sequence. When you install an application like accounting or invoicing or purchase or et cetera, for example, this field here is only there because you have CRM and sales and purchase installed. This would not be here if you didn't have accounting. But essentially what happens is when you install accounting, this view gets added in on top of those layers, or somewhere in that sandwich of layers. And so we can see that here, inherited views. These are the different sheets of plastic paper on top of that. So that's how that would work. And if you reorganize them, they could break views, because maybe a view, let's say you install sales and purchase and then accounting, maybe the accounting app will actually use some fields that's on the purchase side and then be on top of it, and then be either before or after. But if you change them around, now the accounting app is referencing a field that doesn't exist anymore because it's underneath it. So you could break views if you're not careful. Okay. Yes, so to go back to the previous question, the long one about the bank, yes, Stripe use case. My recommendation with my clients is to create a journal for Stripe. You create all the transactions there. I don't think Stripe allows you to connect directly to Odoo, so you'll need to get those transactions manually, import them in through a PDF, or maybe you can get it in Excel format and import it in, or depending on your volume, manually do it, and then perform the transfer between Stripe and your bank. And so what you're actually doing is reconciling the Stripe transactions with the invoices and bills, invoices in this case, and then the internal transfer. Counting was just there. Transactions. You're performing reconciling the internal transfers together. So that's how you see that lump sum. So in the original journal, you're not doing the write-off with the reconciliation models. You're doing that in the Stripe journal. Hopefully that helps you, Tom. I think it was Tom or someone else. All right. I believe that is all the time we have for today. I mean, we technically have 2 minutes. So if you sneak in a question now, I'll answer, but there's a delay, so I don't think it's going to happen. So
There is one, but it's fairly long.
all right, the long question, we'll add it for next time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Hope you had a good time. Invite all your friends, family next time so we have more questions. Otherwise, have a great day and Happy New Year. Soon to be Happy New Year.